I am meeting someone else who grew up in Ottawa, and the conversation, of course, turns to, where'd you go to high school? I always get the same reaction. Oh, so you went to Canterbury. I know Canterbury, that's that artsy school, isn't it? In Canterbury, it is so much more than that. Canterbury is this magical place where kids who would normally get bullied suddenly get to be cool and popular. I'm not kidding. Like, for example, at any other regular high school, skipping down the hallway going, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, that would get you put in solitary confinement for your security, obviously. But at Canterbury, this is just a Tuesday, and you're walking through the drama hall. Now, the drama hall, the place that I would call home for 4 glorious years. Over here, you've got the costume room, not the capital C costume room, that's upstairs. That's where they keep the expensive stuff that they use for the bigger productions. This costume room, this is where you go if you just want to spice up your look in the middle of the day. It's this room with these like 4 or 5 bright yellow, essentially like dumpsters, and the only way to know what's inside of them is to hoist yourself inside and then hope that someone is around later to pull you out when you're done. And important thing to keep in mind about this costume room is that you will lose something. You will lose something every time you go into this costume room. You will lose your bus pass or your lunchbox or the hoodie that you took off because you wanted to try on that sequined poncho. But do not fear, because for everything that's lost in the costume room, there are treasures to be found. Like my favorite sweatpants. Sure, they're 3 sizes too big and they pick up all the dust on the floor, but they're just the perfect amount of bagginess for all of those late night rehearsals. Outside of the costume room, we have the 2 black box theater where we have drama class, not once a week, not a couple times a year like in middle school. Here at Canterbury High School, we have drama class every single day. After the classrooms, the black boxes, you've got the maquette room, the flat room, the paint room, and then down at the end of the hall, right beside that stack of cardboard where the break dancers break, is another studio that this one's brightly lit with floor-to-ceiling mirrors. And it's in this studio that I'm standing when I'm in my final year of high school, and we're about to start rehearsal for our big grad show. We're putting on Moss and Heart's Once in a Lifetime. And my best friend comes up beside me, gives me a little hip bump. I go to hip bump her back, but as I do, Mr. Griffin, who is already in a mood because our lead actor is not off book yet. Also, I think he's in a mood because moodiness is just part of his like shtick. He turns around and catches only me mid-tomfoolery, marches up to me and says, I guess someone just isn't ready for theater school. Ouch. Double ouch, because just hours earlier, Griffin was coaching me on my audition monologues. And I want to say something. I want to throw Helen, my best friend, under the bus and say, she hip bumped me first. I was paying attention. Also, I am completely off book. Granted, I have like 8 lines in this play, but semantics. But instead, I don't say anything. Not because I'm afraid of getting in trouble, because I'm in grade 12 now. We are so past that. But because some of what he just said feels like it actually might be true. Because for the last 4 years, all I talked and thought about was theater. And if I wasn't working on a monologue or a scene at school, I was working on a monologue or a scene at my after-school drama school, the Ottawa School of Speech and Drama. When it came time to apply to universities, of course, I just applied to all the same places that my friends did. The theater programs at York, at Windsor, at Concordia, and the conservatories, Studio 58, George Brown, NTS. But even though I was so not ready to admit it, my heart just wasn't in it anymore. And I only really applied to those schools because I didn't know what I was capable of outside of character walks and funny voices. But now, just a few months away from finishing high school, suddenly I had this weird, unfamiliar yearning for textbooks and the quietude of a library. And for saying words like quietude, but not because they come from a script, because they're actually coming from my own thoughts. Still, there was no way I was ready to admit this to my friends or to myself. Outside of the big grad show, our final assignment for drama class is to write a children's theater script. Now, the script is supposed to appeal to an audience that's between the ages of 4 and 7. It's supposed to have some audience participation, and it needs to have no less than 5 characters, because in the future, when the grade 11 students are tasked with putting on Canterbury High School's annual Children's Theatre Festival, they choose a handful of these scripts to put on. And so having 5 characters guarantees that every student is going to be cast in a role. And even though there's no way I could have told you this at the time that I handed it in, or the night before when I wrote it in its entirety, the night before it was due, all of the things that I was feeling, I really kind of pinned them down in the script that I wrote. So my children's theater play was about a 10-year-old girl who is born into a circus family, but instead of loving this, like I imagine all of my classmates would, she dreams of being a writer. And so instead of running away to join the circus, she flees the chaos of her acrobat family and finds refuge in a library. And sure enough, after I finish high school and I borderline fail / kind of drop out of a single fall semester as a theater undergrad, I changed my major to English Lit, and for the next 6 years, I live in self-imposed exile in Concordia's downtown campus library. And it's partway through my final semester there, I get a message from one of the old drama teachers. They're putting on your play at the Children's Theatre Festival this year. You don't want to miss it. And so that is how I find myself 2 weeks later back at Canterbury High School. Walking down the halls, sure, there are some teachers that I'm not sure I recognize. There's new murals that have replaced the ones that I knew when I was a student, but it's still very much exactly as I left it. Now, I'm the tallest person in the audience when we sit down to watch the play that I wrote, and it's in the same room that Goggle-Logs used to happen. Goggle-Logs was like this lunchtime club we had where you would take Lady Gaga lyrics and then turn them into a dramatic monologue. This is entirely true. This was the same room where I had my first stage kiss. And it was the same room where I talked my best friend through her first big breakup while listening to John Mayer's Gravity on repeat for 6 hours straight. And suddenly I wished that I could grab my 16, 17-year-old self and just shake her and tell her that you don't know this yet, but you will never, ever find another place like this. And there will be moments where you will miss it so much that your bones will actually hurt. And your friends that you secretly cannot wait to replace with shiny new college friends, well, they're your family. And you are going to take every red-eye plane, train, bus to cities all over the country just so you can see them for a long weekend and you guys can talk about this place that you used to share. So in the play, when Circus Girl ends up at the library, she also meets the Tin Man, she meets Piglet, and she meets Michael Darling. Do these characters sound familiar to you? So they're also runaways. They were tired of being part of stories that they didn't get to write for themselves, and so they got up and walked straight out of their books and into the same library where our main character finds herself. I don't want to toot my own horn, but like this is a cute concept, right? Not by show of hands because this is too dark, but like by round of applause, like is this a play that you feel you would see? Oh my God. I'm not sure. Was there any more? Is that it? Okay. So I'm so flattered. The problem is just that you're adults, and this was a play that was supposed to be for 4 to 7-year-olds. And incidentally, 4 to 7-year-olds aren't exactly familiar with early 20th century children's literature. And so there's a point in the play where the storybook characters, they get homesick and they want to go back into their books. And the only way they can do that is if the audience helps them. And so they have to ask the audience questions like, what color is the road that leads to Oz? And what do we say when we want to fly? And the audience is supposed to respond by saying, the yellow brick road, and then they jump in the book. Or, I do believe in fairies, and then they can jump in the book. But instead, it is crickets. It's crickets, except for one boy sitting in the front row who stands up and says, I wanna leave now! All of a sudden, a baby in the corner starts crying. A parent crosses the stage, hunched over, just trying to usher their kids out of there in the least offensive way possible. Another kid turns to his mom and says, I hate this. Take me somewhere else. And even though I am technically the playwright, I'm not bothered by this. I'm not bothered by this because evidently this is not a children's theater show. But what I am watching is these parts of my teenage self that have been resurrected and are now being embodied by real teenagers now, teenagers that are teenagers right now. And so even though the script isn't for 4 to 7-year-olds, obviously, I have a feeling it's not for nobody. Because despite half the audience just walking right out and Tin Man's makeup melting under the hot stage lights and Piglet's papier-mâché ears just hanging on for dear life, that cast of 16-year-olds, they really power through. They power through, they finish that show, they're completely unfazed by the toddler-led riot that is starting to take place outside in the hallway. And so that's how I realized that all the feelings I had put into this high school assignment because I was too afraid to say them out loud, my disappointment of not knowing who I was or who I wanted to be yet, my confusion of not knowing if I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to be doing it or if it's just because I don't know what else to do, and the desperation with which I just wanted to run away so that I could find the answers to all of these questions all by myself, I realized there that these weren't character flaws, and I wasn't the only person who feels that way. All of these things are just part of being a teenager. Thank you.